talking about the Bible and science, and one of the questions that all lay people have is, look, I don't know a whole lot of science, and I know my Bible, and the fact is, how do I approach this topic? And Dr. Kaiser, we were first of all asking last week, can we trust the record of nature? What does Scripture tell us about that? And then we understand that we're coming back to a person's view of what the word day means there. Would you tell us what your definition of the word day is there? Because that's going to influence what the scientists say. And Ken's got a comment here. So tell me, how did you get to a long period of time in Genesis 1 and 2?
John, I'll spell it out as simply as I can. Days in Genesis are God-divided days, not sun-divided days. Sun doesn't have an impact on the day until the fourth creative act of God. So we've got God-divided days. So I've got to give him the opportunity to put into that word day what he needs to put into it. And this can only come as I gather all of the data of especially the Pentateuch of the first 5 books that Moses wrote under the inspiration of God.
And Ken, your view is?
Well, as we quoted in previous programs, I mean, the most respected lexicons that are widely used say that the word day in Genesis 1 means an ordinary day. And my point is that this is a revelation from God. And he's revealing to us a history when we weren't there, and then he's revealing to us what we need to know about who we are, where we came from, and the whole message of the gospel and so on. And so all Scripture is inspired by God, from Genesis 1:1 to the end of Revelation. And therefore, because God communicates in a language, then that language, words have meaning.
Yeah, and I agree. But so you would also agree that the lexicon that you're quoting, okay, for the word day has different definitions.
But John, that's not even the point.
It is the point.
No, it's not. Because
the word.
any word has 2 or more meanings dependent upon context. The point is context determines meaning. And those lexicons say, in this context, when you got evening, morning,
a lexicon is a dictionary. Okay, after that you get a commentary in terms of how they think it should be interpreted. But I'm saying if the word itself from Scripture has 12 hours or 24 hours or a long period of time, or Moses himself in Psalm 90 says it's like 1,000 years. It's not exactly 1,000 years, but it's like it. It could be more. The fact is, if those definitions are possible, then my question is how did you know that one of those lexical meanings is the meaning that we've got to use for Genesis 1?
It's quite simple, because you only have to look through how the word day is used in Genesis and then the rest of the Old Testament. And you know, when Dr. Kaiser agrees, when day is used with a preposition, bayom, it means when.
Is that what you agree?
I use that as one of the arguments because it is said that in Genesis it is not used with a preposition. Indeed it is. In Genesis 2:4, it is used with a preposition.
Yeah, but then it means when, correct?
No, it means in the era, in the era, period.
Yeah, it's translated when for some of the Scriptures, but in the time that God created. Yeah,
some the same scholars you quote also use when for Genesis 1:1, when God began to create the heavens and the earth was without form and void, darkness was upon the face of the earth, and the Spirit of God was moving upon the face of waters. Then God said. You have half of the Bible translations by Keeler, Baumgartner, and others wanting to do a when-then kind of thing, again, because the scholars are influenced by the Babylonian story, Enuma Elish, when above, when the gods began to create. So they use the Babylonian story and say that's how the biblical story came, and they too try to use the when-then. But it's only in Genesis 2:4 that it would be appropriate in the time, in the period when God had created all of these 6 events.
Obviously, you know, the one thing that we have to understand is that we're not saying the word day only has one meaning. But the major meaning of the word day is an ordinary day. It has a primary meaning.
But the question is major, but the major, it means what? In the sense of, if we all agree we've got 3 different definitions, what we're talking about is if we call one of those definitions, all of them are Mr. X, and we're letting the record of nature, which Scripture says gives us accurate information. The question is, can't that information from God, God also gave us that information, can't that help supply our information for Genesis 1?
John, if languages don't have rules and conventions in regard to words and words usage and so on. We'd never communicate on anything. And this gets to be, you know, I mean...
But he's not, but aren't you saying that the rules allow that?
Yeah, and the rules are, context is important. And I'm still trying to say that God worked on 3 separate works before he instituted our common usage. Our common usage was uncommon on day 1, day 2, day 3. And Keeler Baumgardner and Brown Driver Briggs, notwithstanding, are not picking up that sensitive point that a person who is committed to creationism and is committed to full inerrancy of Scripture